Hello and welcome back to the channel. So fingers crossed by now you've seen my last video, which was me collecting the next gen Nightshift from the Ducati UK headquarters up in Silverstone. Normally the bike gets dropped off, and for one reason or other I went up and collected it this time. It was really nice to do it actually, to catch up with everyone. It meant I actually had the opportunity to ride the bike straight away. Sometimes I have the bike here and have to get on with other things, and it won't be until that evening or maybe the next day that I actually get to go out for my first ride. But because I collected it from the headquarters, I was able to literally jump on it, set up my quad lock, which is the first thing I do whenever I get a press bike. So I knew where I was going to get home, and really just get out on the road straight away. And if you know the areas around Silverstone, you literally have A roads around it. You also have a couple of nice B roads. So I decided to take the scenic route home, which did eventually lead me to a couple of motorways where I could again really open up the throttle and see what this bike was about. It was nice, it was refreshing to be able to literally just get out there straight away on two wheels and experience the bike firsthand. And my goodness, it was about a 70-mile journey home. Since then I've probably put on another 200 miles, say, give or take a few. I just thought I'd give a little video on where I'm at now, how I feel about this bike, the new features. I want to go over the new features because the original Nightshift, the Gen 1, the Volume 1, the first edition, whatever you want to call it, I think only came out 2 years or so ago. So I was really surprised when they announced the new lineup and they announced they were redoing the Nightshift, because in my opinion, I mentioned this in one of my older videos and on my Instagram, if you saw me back then when I had the bike on loan, I thought the original Nightshift was probably one of the most beautiful bikes out on the market at that time. It just felt everything about it was correct and they'd nailed it. It was spot on. From just the cafe racer style, which they went for, because they hadn't done that in a while. They did have an original Ducati Scrambler, the cafe racer. It was like an ice blue bike. It was whitey grey with blue, and I liked that bike. I've never got the chance to ride it, but they then got rid of it and replaced it with the Nightshift. I think that's correct. So it was nice to see the cafe racer style bike back on the market. And the colour was spot on. The side number panels looked amazing. It had a flat cafe racer seat. It had, of course, these flat bars, which are similar, if not identical, to the ones on the 1100 Sport Pro. It has the bar end mirrors. I just thought there was so much cool stuff about it. So when Ducati UK, or Scrambler Ducati I should say, came out, announced a new lineup with the full throttle, the Icon, but also the Nightshift, I was, as I said, surprised to see that it was part of that lineup. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Scrambler Ducati have gone with a whole new spec. There's elements which you remember from before. For starters, they've gone with this new nebula blue colour. It looks pretty catchy, it looks pretty cool. It's pretty slick with this brown seat. I'd probably go for a black seat personally if I had this bike. You may remember again the original Nightshift had this really cool sort of silvery dark titanium colour to it, and I'm surprised they got rid of it. I just thought that looked so amazingly slick and awesome. Anyway, moving on, the bike itself now weighs 4 kilograms less than its predecessor. So to give you an idea of how they've achieved that, there's a new frame. They've also adjusted the swing arm. So when you look at the swing arm, there are elements of it that have been removed because they've been milled out. And thinking back on the older models, that's always one solid piece, and it is one solid piece, but they've actually milled out some parts of it. So they've definitely shed off some weight there, and it looks cool. I think that's a really nice feature actually. And then finally, it has a lighter engine. So all in all, 4 kilograms less, and in their eyes, that makes the bike a lot more agile, and I do have to agree. It's a low profile machine, so you really can just sort of find the hot spot on the throttle and just nip around corners and get around people. It is a relatively light machine. I'll come on to later about how much it does actually weigh, its dry weight, its curb weights. As it is such a low machine, it does feel pretty good and pretty easy to get around on. So in terms of the height, this seat, it's again the sort of flat seat that you're familiar with from the Nightshift, but it dips down this time. It's more of an angle, whereas one before was just completely flat, more like a cafe racer style. And this one here dips down a bit, and that means the seat height is 795 millimeters. It does come with two options where you can get a higher seat at 810mm or a lower seat at 780mm. To me, this is too low. I probably would want to up it a bit, get the higher seat. So I'm 6'1", I think I'm about 185 centimeters. I don't actually know, I should check that. Riding around, it feels small. Again, you know my love for the 1100s, but they just feel like the right size bike for me. Everything about them is just larger. It has even that larger tank, which means I can really hug my legs around it when I'm sort of tucking down. This one, trying to hug my legs against it, just doesn't feel right. It's too narrow. Yeah, anyway, I digress. So 795 is the standard height this comes, which is good. I believe a lot of smaller riders, even my fiance was looking at this, it might be a bike which could actually accommodate them and would be a good starting place. And that's the fact you can go lower as well to 780, and it feels so light and agile. It's a good, I imagine these would be a good bike for people to get out on. Other changes they've made. They've introduced this 4.3 inch TFT display. Now, this is the first time I've actually seen one of these on the Scrambler. So I know other manufacturers, I think they've had TFTs for quite a while. But with the Scrambler range, Ducati Scrambler range, they've always just had this circular dial that then just has typical digital display. Anyway, to be honest with you, I don't know if the TFT is needed on a bike like this. I thought the original display was awesome. The first time experiencing a TFT like this was when I took the Monster out for the first time, I should say, in January of 2022. So lots of ice on the road, great time to be on a sports bike. That had a very similar display, if not the same display. I imagine it probably would be the same display. And I thought they were cool. It shows a lot of information. It does look snazzy, all the different colours that pop up. The way they show off the revs, the gears in between. There's a lot of information on there. Blimey. And for a Scrambler, I don't know if it's necessary. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's a bit like Marmite. But it's a cool gizmo to have. It's funky to have. So 4.3 inch TFT display. Their bike has the option of equipping a up-down quick shift, and again, these aren't like rapid bikes. They're fun, they're pretty torquey. I'm not entirely sure why you'd need an up-down quick shift on something like this. It's such a light hydraulic clutch. I suppose just a nice to have if you want to spend the money on it, you can. I've only ever taken one bike out which had that feature, and that was the Street Fighter V4S. I did that on a press day with Ducati UK, and it was just bonkers, that idea of just being able to shift through. But I wasn't prepared for that bike. I mean, that bike could rev up to something like 15,000 RPM, and I was changing about 7 because I'm just not used to bikes that can rev that high. The bike also is multimedia system ready, if that's your thing. In terms of all the lighting, this is quite a nice feature. It's full LED, so everything from the daytime running lights to the low beam, to the high beam, the brake system at the back. Yep, snazzy. And then the turn indicators on the front and rear. Funnily enough, these are the same ones I have on my... Well, they're the same ones from the Nightshift. I always liked the fact that Nightshift had these. And they're the same ones that I have on my Scrambler Ducati 62, the 399cc bike, the little baby of the Scramblers. I don't like the sort of big bulbous indicators that you normally get with the Scrambler range. Although I don't know if these are standard now on all the bikes, I have to check that. But they're normally quite bulbous. So I always thought forking out the extra money for these, I think it's about 150 quid a pop. So 300 quid in total, was well worth it. They just look so much more slick. Moving on, the bike itself has 4 traction levels, so the DTC 4. Again, fully customizable, I believe, on here because there are two riding modes. This at the moment is just sort of sport and standard. I'm being eaten alive out here. Well, it says sport on there, but then on here it just says road and wet. So whether they're changeable, I haven't checked this yet, but that would be cool. So, has different riding modes. It's ride by wire. Again, I don't know if I've ever experienced this before. I've never actually looked. But ride by wire means there's literally no cable from the throttle. When I twist it, there's no cable that moves. It simply has sensors. So say I go like a quarter turn, where the throttle body is, which I believe is under here with the Scramblers, because that's where the air filter is. It's all around here. Will adjust and open to the amount that the throttle has been turned. It just does it digitally. It does it with sensors rather than actually needing a cable, which is cool. It's unnerving, but at the same time, it's really cool. So that works. Maybe it's the ride-by-wire that allows it to have the riding modes. Okay, I might look into that. That's quite cool. Anyway, it has the L-twin engine that we all love. Absolutely adore the L-twin. The L-twin, which we all love. Honestly, I can't fault this engine. I adore it. And one of the features that I've always loved about the Scramblers, especially from Scrambler Ducati, is the idea that the bike is built around the engine. The engine is suspended in here. There's literally bolts there. They're just huge long bolts just suspending the engine. It's all built around it. I just think that's such a cool feature rather than having like a frame where it slots into. Then, so 803cc, 73 horsepower at 8,250 RPM. And then in terms of torque, it's able to put out 48.1 pound-feet of torque at 7,000 RPM. Now, its dry weight, I mentioned earlier, it feels very low and agile and light and agile, is 176 kilograms dry and 191 kilograms, or curb weight as they call it, so 191 kg, which for this bike, the fact they've shed off 4 kilograms is great. Because it's such a low profile bike, because it is, the seat height is only at 795, it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel heavy to move around. You feel very agile. You imagine this to be quite a good commuting bike. I've always enjoyed filtering on the 62. Scramblers in general, they're narrow machines. You just know your space awareness immediately. And I really am being eaten alive out here. Yeah, my camera just decided to overheat. It's been running for about 10 minutes and it's just died randomly, so that's not very good. So as I was saying, it has a Kyber fork, 41mm fork on the front, and then there's also a rear shock, monoshock on the back, which is preload adjustable. The way I'd imagine you have to get to it, because it's really tucked in there, it looks like you're going to have to remove this panel here, this side number panel here, and there are 2 little bolts. So I'm guessing those will come off relatively easily. This will then just slide out and that'll give you access to everything you need to get in there. I actually just wanted to very quickly draw your attention to this pipe here whilst I'm looking at this area. I will carry on with talking about the other sort of bits and pieces the bike comes with as stock. Just looking at the exhaust sort of manifold, if you will. With the L-twin, of course, there's one exhaust outlet there and there's another one at the back here tucked away. And with the older bikes, the older version of the bikes, the older models, I always adored the way the pipes looked. So they used to come out and then they used to coil round here in front of this casing before making their way to the back, and they would join up, with the bit in there. And it was just a really nice detail. For some reason or other, they've got rid of that and they've just kept the one pipe here that tucks right in, and then straight from the back it just comes out and goes down. And they join together in this like collector box here, this big bulbous thing here that would be the first thing to go. But I'm just surprised they've done that. I was wondering maybe that was something paying homage to the original Scrambler from the 1960s. But when I looked online, they didn't have any pipes like this, or maybe I've missed it. But to me, it's just a weird feature to have changed. Again, maybe it's providing easier access to get to bits and pieces down here. With my 62, I've done a lot of servicing on that. And there are times I've had to take sort of the actual end muffler off and then sections of the pipe to get to certain bits. If you want to go down here and clean inside the engine, for example. So maybe they've done it as a reason for, look, it's complicated. If we move the pipe out of the way, then it's just easier access. So maybe that's the reason they've done it. But I don't think this new just single pipe is as aesthetically pleasing as it was before. And then I'm just going to draw your attention to the actual muffler here, the actual silencer. The exhaust itself actually makes a lovely little rumble. And if you've seen my previous video where I collected this bike, on the downshift it does gurgle, it does have character to it, it's Euro 5 compliant. I feel like they could have done a much neater design with that. Again, with the original bikes, and you've probably seen it in the photos that I put in this video so far, it used to collect here at the bottom, and then as standard it would split off into two, so it was like a dual silencer, if you will. Had a very short black cover and then 2 little pipes. And again, I thought that looked really good. The front tyre and the rear tyre both use the Pirelli MT60 RS, and I think they're a great tyre. Most of the bikes I've taken out have used these, so I'm very comfortable with them. I know where the grip is, I know how sort of the lean angle you can get to. Riding in the wet, they're superb. The dry, everything, they're just a brilliant all-round tyre. I really couldn't fault them at all. I've never taken them off-road. I'm not on that kind of rider. I've never really done any off-road or adventure riding, but just for day-to-day use they are very good. And so on the front it's a 110/80 R18 tyre, and on the back it's a 180/55 R17. And that's again one feature I love of the Scramblers. It's just how thick and chunky that big rear tyre is. It's a big brute, and when you look at it, it really adds to the rear end of the bike. So we're getting to the final bits here. The front brake, for those who are interested, uses a 330 millimeter diameter disc with radial 4-piston caliper. And then on the back, it's a 245, I think that says, diameter disc with a floating 1-piston floating caliper, which is this bit here. The front guard, mud guard on the Nightshift, the same as before. It's a much shorter, sportier mud guard. In total, all of this, one of these bikes is going to set you back from 10,995, so just say 11 grand. This is great for around the city. This is great for around town and short little trips and B roads and maybe A roads if you're just popping out for a Sunday ride. But if you're actually really looking to go somewhere and maintain speed at 70, 80 miles per hour, the 1100 is the bike for you, because it just can sit there all day. I've done plenty of journeys on the 1100 and haven't had an issue. These bikes, you do feel at times, you can even hear it at times, you're a bit like, oh blimey, it sounds like it's straining a bit here. Anyway, so let's move on to the TFT. What I thought I'd do now is quickly go through how the TFT works, what features are on there, just get an idea of what you're actually getting when you look at one of these new Scramblers. Immediately on the home screen, if that's what you want to call it, the dashboard, we have your gear in the middle, then you have your revs, your tachometer, have your total mileage down the bottom, what mode you're in, sides down, of course, are down, this is where your speed would be, setting menu, and then at the top we have the fuel gauge, which in my case I've changed it to show the range. But let's just go through. So on the side here, on the handlebar, you have the mode and you have the enter button. It's just a single button. To enter mode, you have to hold it for about 2 seconds, I think. And here it takes you into the mode page or the mode screen. So at the moment I'm in sport, and that has power output high and traction control is 2. So remember, we mentioned earlier, there's traction control goes up to 4, and this is all adjustable. And then if I go down, the other alternative is road, where the power is medium and the traction control goes up to 3. So that's just more sort of chilled riding. Sport would be if you really want to start pushing it on the twisties, or maybe if you want to sit on the motorway, just an area for you to have fun and get every last bit of power out of that 803cc engine. So let's leave it in sport. Now, should we go to the total bit first on the bottom to show you there? So what you do is you hold down on the arrow and it will flick from the up here to down here. And that will show we're on 1398 miles. Trip 1, I've done 264 miles. So since getting this bike from Ducati, I've done 264.1 miles, 61.2 miles per gallon, average speed of 6 miles per hour. That's crazy, and I tell you why. It's because I've been doing so much London riding where you're just filtering at slow speed and doing it. It's a nightmare. I haven't really had the opportunity to really open this bike up yet on the back roads, which is a real shame. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. But in total I've ridden this bike for nearly 7 hours, and that's a bit of pieces of everything. So we've seen that. If we go back up to the setting menu, here we can see everything else. So riding mode we've already assessed is sport and road. I believe this is actually where you can start to change those settings. So if we go into sport here we go. So we've got your power. We can change this from high to medium. We're going to leave that in high. It's got dynamic and smooth down at the bottom. I don't want to start interfering with that. I'm just going to leave it as is. But let's go back. We've got your traction control as well. So realistically I could if I wanted to. Oh, so this is where it's like road and wet. Okay, so I could if I wanted to put, yeah, there we go. So 1 is just when it's like bone dry and you're easy. You can even turn the traction control off if you want, which is quite cool. And then as you go further up, it switches from performance side of things to safe and stable, which you want in the wet, which is nice touch. It's nice to see that. It's not raining at the moment. I might even put this in 1, you know, and see what happens there. And then we go back. So then we go to the next bit. We've got all this here. I don't need to touch any of this. Let's go back again. Info display is what we just looked at a minute ago. The total trip, trip 1, your average speed, time, bits and pieces. I don't need to filter it with any of that. Fuel indicator. So this is the first thing I changed when I was at Ducati. As standard, it comes with level. And if I just quickly pop back, there might be a quicker way of exiting. I haven't realised that yet. You can see here, yeah. So I'm on red. I've got a full tank. I filled up not too long ago. So Darren, the chap at Ducati, was telling me that a lot of people actually get confused by this because they don't know which way it goes. So the red is your bottom, you're on low. So it works from right to left. And at the moment, I've pretty much got a full tank, which is great. But as I was saying, this doesn't really mean much to me. If I'm riding like a maniac or if I'm riding slowly, this is going to change. And I just, rather than knowing how much fuel I've got left, I want to know how many miles I've got left. So I prefer to keep it in range. So let's change that back to there. Even when you have the range mode, the range choice on, or setting on, I should say, at the top here it's got the actual fuel pump, and that's in black. When you get to a certain point in the tank, maybe halfway down, it does change to yellow, so you'll know you're getting low on your fuel. And then when you get to really low, I imagine it'll probably go to red, because that's what that bar had there. So that's like the critical. That's, you've probably got less than maybe 1 or 2 litres left, and you need to find a petrol station ASAP. So it's nice that there is a colour coordination that goes with it, black to yellow, and then I'm assuming red, but I've not got that low yet. I've always filled up. At the moment, I have 186 miles with pretty much a full tank, which is great, and that's me just chilling around, riding around 30 miles per hour everywhere. So that's not bad at all. If we carry on looking through, what else we've got? We've got DRL, that's your daytime running lights. You can have those in auto and manual. Remember, they're full LED now. Your display, you have themes. I'm guessing that's whether it goes light or dark. You can change your brightness, and then your focus mode. I've not tampered with this at all. I've not played with this at all, but maybe when you're riding, if you put that on, maybe it streamlines everything and makes it just the essential bits of information rather than having everything on there. So maybe I'll have a little play of that later on and see what that looks like if I go for an evening ride. Then we have pin, date and time, turn signals. What can you do with the turn signals? Manual on, manual off. That's cool. That's a nice little feature. Language, of course, units. So if you want your miles or kilometers, and then just general info of the bike, shows it's got good battery, it's not running at the moment, and then you have your service history as well, I think, on there. So there's a cool amount, an adequate amount of information on there, and it does look snazzy. I'll give you that. It does look snazzy. It's, when I've been riding around over the last couple of days, it is very easy to see all the information there at hand, but I just think it's a very modern piece of equipment on a very retro styled bike, and I don't think the two go hand in hand. I can understand why Ducati and Scrambler Ducati are doing this, probably trying to make their whole production lines more streamlined as well, save on costs by having just every bike pretty much using the same display. But I really did. I mean, you can even see it here if you're looking here. They've kept this, which is a nice little touch, but this is how the Speedo used to look. So it was this circular bit, and then you had all your information in the middle, and then with the 1100s there was a protrusion that came out here, so it sort of curled round and then protruded out, and that's where your speed was, and all the other bits and pieces was on here. But it's nice that they paid homage to that in a way, but at the same time I would say either just go full new TFT or just keep the original setup. I'm just thinking I should probably actually show you what this looks like when it's on, because at the moment, of course, it's in neutral and it's turned off. But if I fire it up, it's cutting out a bit there. Yeah. So all in all, I haven't really done a video like this before where I've gone through and read pretty much the brochure about what the bike comes with. I like to think that I've been able to put my own little spin on it as well, so it hasn't been just literally me just reading through the brochure. But I adore scramblers from all kinds of brands, and the Scrambler Ducatis, they're a really fun bike. You get on one of these and it does put a smile on your face. They're not crazy powerful, they're not stupidly torquey that you twist the throttle and it's going to throw you around or throw you off the bike. You know, even when I'm riding, if I know I want to go for a gap, I have to drop it down a few gears before I can go. Just twisting it in, say, 6th gear, it's not going to pull your face off and drag you forward. You need to get the power up into the red zone, or up in those 7,000-8,000 RPM points to really get everything out of this engine. So if you know how to ride it, you can have a lot of fun with them. And I've been riding the Scrambler for 4 or 5 years now, the 62. now the ones that I've taken out on loan. So I know how to ride these bikes. They're less than a litre. You can have a lot of fun with them. You can get from A to B, no problem. As I say, motorways a bit more of a struggle on them, but you can still get there. They're just not as efficient at getting around as the 1100s, but they are narrow, and that's one thing about the 1100s. They are noticeably larger bikes, so filtering it takes a lot more focus, whereas on these they're just so narrow. Even today I was heading into London, the M25, the M40, the A40, everything was chock-a-block, and I was just able to get through no problem. This is the next gen Nightshift. I hope you've enjoyed the video, but thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.